Welcome to the Unconventional Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Moses, certified financial planner, licensed realtor, and founder of Me Financial. If you're an accredited investor feeling overwhelmed by managing your portfolio and looking for alternative investment strategies that go beyond the traditional stock market, you're in the right place. Let's head into today's episode so you can start taking control of your financial future.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. As you will have noticed, I am making a little pivot to the Unconventional Investor, and I am so excited to give you this announcement. This has been a long time in the making, and I know a lot of you have been listening. And so I'm pivoting to talk more about alternative investments and how you can add those to your portfolio, what the different alternative investments are and how they work. I think alts are kind of I don't know about the way of the future, but for me, for people that want to get out of the stock market and they want to, I should say, diversify outside the stock market, it's really where I want to focus. I have a lot of experience with this, and it's something I'm really passionate about and excited about. So we are pivoting the entire podcast to be about alternative investments, how you can put them in your portfolio. And I think most importantly, the strategies that you can use and the way that you can then go into retirement. And this is my goal, the way that you can go into retirement and know exactly how much you're going to have every single month for retirement. And having some of these investments not only diversifies you from the ups and downs of the stock market, but a lot of my clients find them more interesting. And, you know, if you've listened, I'm a lot about like making yourself feel good about whatever your investments are, because not only do you need to make smart decisions, but you also need to be able to sleep at night and be excited about what you're doing. And I find that implementing some of these alternative investments helps people to not only sleep better at night, but they're more excited about it and they like learning about some of these businesses. So what do I mean by all of these alternative investments? I am talking about investments in hotels and self-storage, in mobile home parks. There's even alternatives that we're going to talk about that invest in wine, invest in car washes. There's a whole world out there, and I don't feel like people know about it. And so that's why I'm pivoting the entire podcast to talk about these alternatives. And in talking about these, self-storage or there could be oil and gas. There's all kinds of different ones, farmland. A lot of them come with different strategies that you can use to either minimize your taxes or different strategies to do Roth conversions. And so those are the different things that I want to talk about, because you can sell a residential rental. Let's pretend you have a residential rental, and then you have capital gains taxes. Well, instead of paying those, you could then roll them into an alternative investment and then make a return on those, and get a monthly check or a quarterly check, and not have to pay the taxes until, and then you could leave it to your heirs and then they would get the step up in basis. So I want to talk about different strategies like that. This is what excites me of how you can put some of these things together. And I think it gives people an option to where you can invest in these businesses, but then you don't have to do the work. And that's also what my clients love about them. They're like, this is great. These people are operating these hotels. I'm getting a quarterly check, and I absolutely love this. And as you'll hear me mention, it obviously depends on who you're putting your money with, and how you're going to get your money back. But we'll talk about the safety of some of them, some things to look out for. I have a litmus test for investments. And then I also want to talk about case studies about the returns that people have gotten, the mindset changes that have happened from people investing in these, and then what percentage of their portfolios do they put into the alternative investments. Some specific things that I want to talk about besides the kinds of things that you would invest in, like the mobile home communities and self-storage, is that alternative investments also run the gamut of our income or their growth and income. And there's a lot of lingo. I go to these conferences and like I understand it now, but at the beginning, I mean, there's just so much lingo. This is an income play. This is a growth play. This is like how they talk. And really it's just, if you want income, you would invest in something like a hotel or something that did residential units that were rented because they're paying every single month. And then you would then obviously get a check every single month. And there's other ones that are growth where you would invest your money and you may not get it back for 8 years. So it just really depends on what your goals are, how old you are, your risk tolerance. Are you new to alternatives? Because if you're new and you're doing your first alternative, I wouldn't recommend you invest your money and wait 8 years to see a result, because you're not going to stay excited consistently for that long. So those are the kinds of things that I want to talk about, is not only how they're going to fit in your portfolio, but all of the different alternatives that you can then invest in the different ways. And you might be able to pair them together to, to do your goals. And I'm also going to interview a lot of these investments on the show so that we can go through and you can hear how I am interviewing them, the kinds of questions that I'm asking, and the things that you may need to worry about. Because I'm not, there's websites out there where you can do this yourself. If you're an accredited investor, there's multiple websites out there where you could prove you're an accredited investor. And then there's just, pages of investments that you can invest in. For me, I have a hard time with that just because I like to interview the manager of the fund. They call it the sponsor of the fund. They are offering the fund. And I like to talk to them, see their history. There's a lot of things when you're reviewing these deals that you learn. And then I also have the advantage of going to conferences where I talk to other advisors about their experience with some of these. So the people that I'm going to have on are ones that I have vetted, that I have talked to other people about. I'm not going to just have anybody on here. And then I also want to have an episode of a fund that presented, and it was one that I would never do. So, I kind of want to run the gamut of how you can add some of these things. And then it's not only going to be, I want people to realize that your wealth doesn't only lie in, the stock market, that there's a whole world out there. So I'm also going to branch out in a little bit into, like travel points, and there's other ways to enrich your life with alternative ways of, your finances, if you could put it that way. I've also thought about having someone on about like Medicare Advantage programs. So I'm still going to kind of keep whatever I'm interested in is a topic that we want to have, but I want to do more focus on the alternatives because I do think that they are the way of the future. I think people are very interested in them. And there's tons of advisors out there talking about things, and this is what I'm interested in, the way that I stand out. So I don't really talk about myself a lot on the podcast, and I'm going to use this one episode to talk about why I do have the experience to do this. I started my RIA when no one was going independent, and everyone, I wouldn't say everyone, but I got quite a few comments about not only being so young and going independent and fee only and having my own business, which allowed me to then sell these things. Because if I'm with like a big company and they're telling me what to do, they vet these deals and then say what you can sell. And a lot of times what happens is they're taking a fee, and then the advisor takes a fee, and then whatever else is left over is what the investor gets. And so by doing it the way that I am, by being what's called a registered investment advisor, which means I'm an independent financial advisor, I am cutting out that which is usually 7 to 9%. And I think that's a lot of percentage, right? So 7 to 9% of not having this big conglomerate tell me, what I can sell and what I can't sell. The downside is that all of that due diligence and all of that risk falls on me, right? Of whether this is a good investment or whether it's not, because my clients are just going to be trusting me whether it's good or not. I have been doing these alternative investments since 2016 was the first time that I did these. So I'm 8 years in. 40% of my business is alternative investments. And when people come to me, that's often why they come to me, is that they don't find the stock market as exciting anymore, or they don't really want to put more in there. They're like, I've got my 401k, I got all this, and my only other option is to invest in the stock market. Like, I want other things, but I don't have time to manage a rental or, an Airbnb or a VRBO. They want other options. And so these alternatives have ended up being a great option for them. And so I have been doing them for a long time. And I first got into them and I went to a conference, and I think that this guy was head of one of these large companies. And this person asked, how did you learn about this? And I'm thinking he went to a class or he took a law class, oh, it's just by reading deals. And it truly is just by reading deals. Like, I have read hundreds of these. I spend multiple hours a month going through deals, and I maybe find one or two a year that I'll actually put my clients in, but I will interview maybe 15. And so I go to multiple conferences, I pick a couple then and interview, and there's different reasons why I might move forward with some, because there's different tactics that you can do. But, for the most part, I have read hundreds and hundreds of deals. Again, my clients love them. I was one of the first people to start an independent RIA, and I was also one of the first advisors to go into alternative investments. I have more experience than most of these people, and just because I'm a woman, I'm going to tout this, that I am one of the only women sitting in the room. So I'm really proud of that, and I want to bring this to you because I'm really, really passionate about people investing in things that they're excited about, and I don't think that a lot of people are excited about the stock market. If you love watching stocks go up and down and what's going to happen with this, there are certain people that absolutely love it. And I'm not saying it's not going to take up a portion of your portfolio, but it doesn't need to be all of it. I go on Reddit and I see some of these people that are the Henrys, the not rich yet, the high income, high earners, not rich yet. And they'll say, okay, I've maxed out my 401k. I have an emergency savings. I'm doing a backdoor Roth IRA every single year, which is basically when you convert your regular IRA to a Roth to get money into the Roth. Okay, so what should I do now? And the recommendation is to open like a regular brokerage account and do more stock. And to me, I'm thinking, wow, that sounds like not exciting at all. Like, if I had all of that taken care of, to me, I want to go like invest in real estate, or I want to invest in these hotels. I want to go into a different realm. And that's what this show is going to be about. If you have all of these things taken care of and you are, you've got savings and you don't have a debt problem, and you want to go into something else and you didn't even know that this world existed, then this podcast is for you. And I encourage you to share it with people that you might think that would be interested in alternative investments. With a lot of these, you are going to have to be an accredited investor, which means that you need to be earning over $250,000 a year, have $1 million over net worth. And there are some where you don't need to have that, but the reason that they have this accredited investor is because you are going to be investing $25,000 to $50,000 at a minimum, and someone could literally walk away with that. You could invest that with a company, and then they could go belly up, and you'd lose all of it. I haven't had that happen, but it does happen, and the reason that's why they have this rule is because if you're not an accredited investor and you invested, your only $25,000 that you had, or your $50,000 that you had in your portfolio, then you would lose, you have nothing to build on. Versus if you have all of these other things in place, losing this money, it's not fun. I'm not saying that it would be, but you wouldn't be destitute and, not be able to retire. These are something that you want to add to your portfolio. And I also think, if it's something that you just aspire to, because you will get there, and there are some alternative investments where you don't have to be an accredited investor and the investment is $10,000. And we'll be talking about those too, here and there. But for the most part, it's going to be for accredited investors that can afford to invest $25,000 to $50,000 inside of their IRA or otherwise to, expand their portfolio. So this is the reason that I am a realtor, is because it gives me insight into the market that I wouldn't otherwise have. It gives me access to tools, to reporting, to meetings and things like that. And so I think with all of that going together, it's kind of creating the perfect storm. So I'm really excited for this pivot. So let me know if you have any feedback on it, if you're excited about it. I really appreciate you guys listening. And here's to kicking it off, because I am really, really excited about the Unconventional Investor, because I feel like it's who I am and where I've come to as being an advisor. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Unconventional Investor podcast. I hope you feel more confident in how you can grow your wealth using the strategies I shared in this episode. If you're ready to take the next step in diversifying your